What's up, everybody? Don Martelli here at the PR Bunker podcast. Welcome back. It's been a little bit of a time, a little reprieve, but over the last handful of months, I've joined a handful of communication networks, and one of them, pretty active, is where I met our guest today, Adam Rosenberg, who we'll call either Rosie or Berg because he's a hockey guy, which we'll get into in a second. But Adam, thanks for joining me today. You know, tell my audience, what do you do? How'd you get there? And let's get into it.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Problem, pal.
So I am a communications consultant, just like everybody is. The short answer of how I got into it is, you know, over the pandemic, I had like my third straight job that was eliminated, which I'm sure a lot of people in the space can relate to. And I said, all right, I'm done doing this. I'm just going to have my own clients. But the longer version is I worked for a couple agencies and worked for a couple brands like Clorox. Went from Clorox to esports and the sports side of things. And now I am a communications consultant, and my specialty is gaming, video games, and sports betting and sports tech. So I actually get paid to talk about betting on sports.
Fantastic.
And media. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's better now that gambling is allowed in Massachusetts, like FanDuel, DraftKings, everything else.
I don't have to drive to New Hampshire.
Love that.
To do different markets anymore.
What's that work look like? I mean, kind of walk me through kind of like, obviously communications is communications, but you're in a pretty particular niche. Is it to, launch new campaigns, new features? What's the work really look like?
So a lot of my work centers around startups that you would see sort of in any space, but are I like to tell people that want to work in sports, find something that works with sports, not in sports. And so all of my clients, and that's, by that I mean, find a technology that everybody needs versus going to go work for the Bruins.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
It's sort of that kind of thing. But the clients that I have are all tech companies that do different things within the space. So one of my companies I work with is Rhythm. They're guys that came out of a man and woman, both came out of MIT. They do allow you to make your own betting analytics models, and you can use those to create projections. The long-term benefits of it are becoming like a SaaS and some sort of projection that you could use on any sort of site. I have another company that I work with called Outlier that allows you to find basically good bets, which are called plus EV, estimated value bets. And then third, which is one of my favorites, is this app called Pickit, which is a bet tracking app. And so it syncs with all the sports books. So sorry for the folks that are still using bookies. It does not sync with your bookie, but there is software for that.
And I'm wearing a Revere t-shirt, so I got to call my bookie now. Hey, Jimmy, two times. I can't bet with you anymore.
But it syncs with all the sports books in the US. So we're able to actually it's really cool. I'm able to do data PR for them.
Nice.
And so I'm able to go to ESPN and say, hey, past weekend, how many people had I can tell you how many people had Saquon Barkley in their parlay as a leg. Like a lot of information that sports books will give out numbers and things like that, but this is all across all the books. And one in every $12 is that's bet in the US is synced on Pickit. So it's a solid base. So I get to do different things for them. One of them, I host some shows and I just kind of help them. One of the cool things about PR that I'm sure that you've discovered is that we're the guys that kind of know everybody. And so our jobs sort of move from naturally telling a story to, hey, here are folks that you could tell a story with. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of partnership development and, hey, like here's the media company that you should be working with as you guys are building your media product. So it's a lot of fun. It takes like my sports betting clients are about 70% of my time. And then I have an esports client that's the rest of my time. But it's, I'm my own boss.
Nice.
And you and I became friends because we kind of marched to that. We're really good as our own boss.
Yep.
And that's why you and I are friends. And I love it.
Yeah.
I fell into it in July, and
haven't looked back.
My wife has insurance, so I'm not going
there
back.
You go.
No, not at all. As long as I'm mooching my wife's insurance until she gets sick of
love it. Well, I mean, you must be the guy that's like, hey, Bruins are on tonight, Adam. Like, what am I taking? What's I need
all the time?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I mean, how successful are you this year? I mean, were you in the plus? You in the black? Where we at?
Very, very much in the plus.
Good.
So baseball is my main sport.
Got
And look, this doesn't need to become a responsible gaming podcast, but
Definitely not.
I was very, very, I could absolutely tell you my lowest moment in gambling. I got into gambling in 2018, and I know exactly my worst gambling moment ever. And it was the Pats Super Bowl
Woo.
against the Rams, because the 13-3 one,
Yep.
where I just had the over on everything.
Oh man.
And I really needed Gronk to win MVP to save anything, and it did not work out that way. And
yeah, that one catch right down the sideline.
Yeah, the longest catch of the game for like 60 yards.
Yep.
So it was before I lived in Boston. But but no, I'm very in the black and flex, I guess. But it's I had a very good Super Bowl, not just because my Eagles won, but because I had a good Super Bowl.
Nice.
But yeah, like I also just try to, as I've grown, the bets that I take, I just try to take smarter value bets.
Yeah.
Like before we jumped on, you and I were talking about how I bet the Four Nations Cup, and I was sitting pretty last night because I had like Sidney Crosby MVP, I had Connor Hellebuck MVP, and the nuclear scenario was actually like Connor McDavid going off and an over, and it almost happened. But I had a Zach Werenski at like 40-1 to be the points leader, and that hit through, which is great. I just try to, for me, it's just like, it's math, it's fun, it's value. And I just kind of say, it's fun to have like stake in the game. It's fun to do this. It's a lot more, it's way more fun when you do it the right way. Betting was very stressful for me when I wasn't good at it. And so now, but I will go to every sort of parent event, and the dads will come up to me and say, hey, so who do you like for this and this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really want to, or the worst is saying, I don't really like anybody in that. They're like, oh, but who do you like? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to waste my money.
I'm on DraftKings now. There's this ping pong match in Japan. Who should I be betting on, right? Yeah. Well,
Madden Sims and all that stuff.
I'm glad you brought up the Four Nations tournament. And obviously this podcast is about communications and marketing. And when you think about professional sports, the NHL, NBA, NFL, PGA, MLB, they don't need marketing for the brand because people know who they are if you're a sports nut. But I think hockey, in my perspective, and professional hockey, unless you're like a puckhead, it's kind of one of those like the redheaded stepchild of the family. Like you either love it or you don't pay attention to it. I think, and I don't know from your perspective, the chatter around hockey in the last 2 weeks has been abundant and in places that I've never seen. Like it's leading newscasts and news stations. It's in the media on a regular basis, not just ESPN and sports media, but it's kind of everywhere. And I feel like the way they sort of switched from going a typical all-star format to this tournament was a brilliant marketing idea that has galvanized, I think at this early stage, people's attention towards hockey. I'd love to get your perspective on somebody who's working in that space, who's obviously a hockey fan, played hockey. I mean, I think it's been incredible, but I'd love to get your take on that.
So I said I was going to save this part for when we started recording, but we talked about what's on our desk.
Yeah.
And I have, so Jeremy Roenick is one of my favorite players growing up. I liked him when he was on the Blackhawks, and then he came to the Flyers. I have an autographed custom thing around. He makes his own whiskey now.
Yep.
And I got this. I met him last Christmas 2023 in Methuen at a One Stop Liquor. He was doing stuff, and
Nice.
he took 20 minutes to sign this for me and talk specifically about the 2004 Flyer. He named every guy on that team, and he's like, he's like, that team I thought was going to do it, and this and this. But look, for the Four Nations stuff, I'll admit I was really questioning this because the NFL ends, and the NFL is king when it comes to media and it comes to attention. And the league was like, cool, we're going to take off for 2 weeks and not have eyeballs. And also keep in mind, this was, the NBA All-Star game was about to come up. So in my mind, I'm like, you are not as big.
Did anybody watch the NBA All-Star game? I'm like,
and then look how it
actually happened.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it couldn't have gone better for them from a comps perspective because you had what I think you and I just both called, like, it was almost like a Taylor Swift effect that had on the NFL, where now everybody's talking about the NHL. And this is a league, by the way, that didn't have a TV deal 5 years ago. So ESPN had dropped them. They got back. Now, by the way, MLB doesn't have a TV deal after this, and which is a whole other ball of wax. But this is great for the NHL because, like, all they wanted to do, what they wanted to get out of these outdoor games, when they do the game in Fenway and they do, I think they got in this. because it really proved to the point that players will play for something. People got to see the best version of all these players in an exhibition that mattered, and it wasn't the All-Star game.
Agreed.
And that, like, every league has been trying to do that for years, and the NHL nailed it.
Yeah.
And now people are going to be, this is great for Olympics. Because they're coming back and it's going to look good. And it couldn't have gone better because the NBA All-Star game could not have gone worse.
Correct. Yeah.
And it was and we talk about in comms that there are things you can control, and the thing you can control is always your side of the street. You can you can keep your side of the street clean, you can keep it organized, and your job is to basically move clients or the brand that you work for around what trucks are moving by and what's going on. And I got to tell you, man, the truck was on fire on the other side of the street on the NBA, and the NHL was just like, dude, we got water and we're good over here.
Or then it's just some little gasoline on the fence going, shh, burn that thing down.
I cannot remember the last time that my wife knew that there was like a hockey game and stuff that was going on.
Quick interjection. What I found interesting about the Four Nations tournament that they did their typical promotion, right? But I think the storytelling component of the tournament as it got, as the USA Canada thing was starting to kind of come to a head, and interjecting Ruzioni and Gretzky and snippets from the movie Miracle and Michael's voiceover, all that stuff, like that storytelling stuff is what we do for our clients. But the folks in the NHL that layer that into this campaign, really, I don't know if they knew what they had right away. Like, as this thing started to kind of get momentum, I think they started to play into nationalism. Then you had like the booing of the national anthem, which wasn't about the players in the national anthem. It was more about the politics. And then happened a little bit at the Garden last night, right? And there's some chatter there. Like, you've got regular news stations talking about the national anthems and political back and forth between, our president and, our friends up north. Like, it's transcended the game a little bit. So it's had a positive effect comms-wise for NHL and reputation-wise. It bled over to mainstream media. And so it's one of those, like, moments when your client's like, hey, we have this thing. Can you make it go viral? Well, I can't make anything go viral other than like a disease. But, when you have something that's really emotionally connected to a thing, a story, a moment in time, these things just roll on their own. So I think, like, there's folks like us that sort of planted this seed about the story around this tournament and just took on a life of its own, which is, scares the crap out of you as a communications person, because, like, sometimes you want to be able to control the narrative, but in this case, it just ran and they just poured gasoline on the thing, man.
It was great. I mean, I think Fanatics, obviously, who did the jerseys, had some really good marketing around it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's funny. I was realizing that, like, my wife loved Miracle, but probably had never watched a hockey game. Yeah. And, like, we get all in. Like, I remember I took my kids to see Disney on Ice, and it was at BU, and I was just, like, going through all the players to, like, my 2-year-old and just being like, and this guy was on Team USA, and this guy was on Team USA, and this guy ended up playing for the Avalanche. Like, and I went through all of them. And it's just, first of all, it was great that it was in Boston, because there's such a great culture here on hockey.
Good point.
And the storytelling, like you said, it really draws the parallels to Miracle, where it wasn't even an underdog story. It just was a really good narrative. Yeah. Like, underdog stories are great. Like, everybody loves the underdog. But this was, like, no one said, oh, the USA can't do it. And no one said, oh, Canada can't do it. These teams, from a market perspective, they were equal. Everyone was like, yeah, these guys are equal. And it just told such a great narrative. Like, Sidney Crosby, the team had been 26-0 with him playing in a lineup. He hadn't played in a Team Canada game in a decade. Yeah. And on the USA side, you had, it was USA had always been second fiddle on a lot of these things, and just dominated up until that game last night. They still, like, the game went to overtime, couldn't even been better. It could not have been scripted better. It was a great narrative. Yep,
great hockey. Wonderful for the sport. Great storytelling. Pissed off that the USA lost. I mean, and I shouldn't be pissed off because it's basically an exhibition game. Right? I'm a Bruins fan, right. And I was like, the only solace is that Brad Marchand was on the Canadian team, so he won, which I'm like, it makes me feel a little bit better. I'd like to see Marshy score, then I'd be angry, but then I'd be okay with it. But so pivoting real quick, I'd love to go back to think about where you've come from in terms of how you started in just the comms business and where you are today. I mean, a lot of what you're doing just didn't exist legally back in the days, right? So talk to, like, those young marketers and people that are in comm school now thinking like, geez, what can I do in marketing? And I don't think a lot of people think about, comms and marketing jobs as finite as like what I do. For example, I'm focused on mission-driven, impact-focused clients. So folks that are doing work in the nonprofit space, doing affordable housing for veterans, like very specific marketing and comms. And you clearly have your niche. And I didn't find this right out of school. You didn't find that right out of school. But like, what's the advice?
I was an engineer.
Yeah,
dude. I was an environmental engineer. Yeah, it was.
So what? If you that young buck, the young Rosie that's is kind of in at Harvard University these days, looking to go into marketing communications. I mean, what kind of advice would you give those young brains thinking about the potential of having a career in this space?
It's find the thing that you really, if there's something that's sparking you and that you love, keep it in your back, keep it inside your back pocket. Look, bagging up. You're going to probably take 90% of your jobs and you're not going to enjoy what you're doing, because the reality is, this is just to level set. Your job doesn't exist to make you happy. Your job exists to fund all the things that make you happy. That is the baseline. Like, there's this myth about, you got to love what you're doing. You don't have to love what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing enough so that it funds the things that do make you happy. This is just sort of how capitalism works. What that changes, we could have another discussion, but that's just how it works. But the things that you love, keep in your pocket and try to find unique ways to solve problems within that. You mentioned, how you're doing mission specific. It's funny how you say, like, I focus on these mission specific things. For me, it's like, I know there are like 4 people when someone asks me that, there's like 4 people I know who do that. For sports betting PR, I can confidently, I'm the only one who does it. And so I haven't had a problem getting clients because I'm the person that does it. And the thing is, it just all came down to, for me, contacting brands that I want to work with and saying, I love your product. I've been using your product. Here's a story idea that I have for you guys. Like with Picket, it was, I use your product. You're tracking all the bets. You have a really good responsible gaming story. And like that, when you have things that you love that you are doing, figure out what is something that you can bring to it that you can help change it, elevate it, build its brand. That's the way to run with it.
Good point. Yeah. When I a lot of my work is with nonprofits. And for me, my work is around just, helping fuel the mission through storytelling. But what that really means is I can help create a marketing communications infrastructure specifically to target those that are donating or have yet to donate to raise money to fuel the mission, right? It's not just getting ink, but it's really about driving revenue for the organization.
It's development.
Yeah, it's all dev, but I mean, that's why people like us kind of sit at the epicenter of these, big conference tables where you got finance, you got fundraising, you got the people that do design, you got folks in our operations. But we're tactically marketers and communicators, but really we're business consultants. Like, tell me about the business. Who do you sell to? And let me figure out the mousetraps you need to put in place to get them to buy, donate, bet, whatever that call to action is. And to your point earlier, like, that's why we're super dangerous at networking events, because we know a lot about everything. Maybe not like super, super deep, but like we can hold a conversation with like I've done work with companies that deal with nanoparticles, turf installments, big DIY box stores. I mean, the knowledge I have is probably 90% useless, but it's rattling around in my head somewhere. So it's just, to your point about, do I love the job? Some days I do, some days I don't, but I love the exploratory, educative journey that comms provides folks like us. And the fact that we're just always kind of on the edge of the narrative, like the NHL and comms, like there's always something that we're going to be involved in, which I think is really attractive to folks that go into this field. So it's interesting. Like, your job didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. It just didn't exist. So now it does, but It's really cool. So who knows?
We get to tell people how we ask these basic questions that's so surprising that most companies just don't do with themselves. Is who are you?
Yeah.
Why do you matter?
Yeah.
And who are you talking to?
Yeah.
And our job is to make sure that is done in a coherent fashion, because you always will get a brand that says, we've been doing ads, we haven't really been growing. Well, cool. So do your ads feature a celebrity? Well, even if it's yes, that's like, yeah, they do. And it's like, well, what did your ads say that you are something unique versus someone else?
Yep.
No, not really. And it's just, it's a lot of easy stuff. It all just comes down to, why would someone care about this? Okay, well, let me ask the question and let me write why someone should care about this.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you're in the weeds, you don't think about it. And so that's the best part about being a comms person is like we have our hands in all of it. We know where all the bodies are buried.
Yep.
Us and the lawyers are like the guys that know where everything is buried. So we kind of have to game theory is what a lot of comms is. And I was having a conversation with someone today on an esports client of, hey, how do we pitch this story into this publication? And I said, okay, well, I need these dependencies to do this because they're going to ask this. And it's all game theory.
Yeah.
So like my background actually was in like engineering and political science, and a lot of like, and I know you do stuff with politics too, but like that, the political science facet of background, even more so than journalism, really prepares you for comms and marketing, because it's chess. I'm going to move this so that this piece moves, and I'm thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yep.
And that is how it has to work for comms, because so much of our stuff revolves around stuff we can't control, that it's about anticipating what's going to happen and then how you're going to either react or be proactive around it.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think the one, I wouldn't say challenge, but the interesting part of our job these days is the proliferation of just tools available to us to create, right? So we are developers of stories, storylines, we tell stories, but oftentimes we are literally a society of like squirrels on Adderall, 30 seconds away from our next distraction, right? So how do you get somebody's attention, and how do you take the time to develop really solid narratives that get people to pay attention, right? And you've got the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Perplexities, got all these tools out there to do this stuff. I'd love to kind of pick your brain real quick to understand, like, what's your stack look like, your marketing stack, or the tools that you use to do your job? How are you weighing in on AI at all? Are you leveraging that in some way, shape, or form? How do you manage your day? Because obviously, if you're not in comms, you don't really understand how the sausage is made. But there's a lot of things that we've got to do procedurally and from a process standpoint to get from an idea to publishing that piece of content in some way, shape, or form. And back in our days when we first started, when I first started in this business, I was faxing press releases to reporters, okay? Fax machines, okay? So old school. Today, it's a click of a button, I can hit 3 million journalists in a second. What's your kind of stack look like? What tools are you using kind of help you out through the course of your day? Paper, pen.
Paper and pen.
Classic.
Your brain will remember things faster when you write them down. So initial things I always will write down on there.
Yep.
I'm in my Google. I have all these Google Docs that are scratch pads for a lot of things. I use Claude.ai.
Yep.
I think it's a better writer
Yep.
than ChatGPT.
Yep.
Look, I'll fully admit there's a lot of things that I will throw into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you make this? And I do that really to test myself on just sort of the admin-y part of it. And then I'll just, well, let me edit this to make this a little more human and do something like that.
Yep.
But, I think that like when you go from, idea conception to execution, a lot of this is the best stories are actually like longer lead stories, or just kind of knowing what's going on in the world. So look, I read like my Globe, I read my New York Times, I will read CNN, I will go to what's trending on Twitter just to kind of see like, okay, like what are people kind of talking about? And then I just reverse engineer, and this is why comms guys this is why as comms people, we always say, hey, like tell us everything about the brand and like why we want to know it, because I just think, okay, if I am talking to this publication at a party, what is a common thing that I can say between me as the brand and this person at the party that makes the brand relevant? And sometimes that doesn't exist. And we had a conversation in the Slack thread about like, sometimes like you don't have news, dude, like, and it just doesn't work. But sometimes it's, oh, hey, like for example, my esports client is doing things around chess is going to be part of the esports World Cup for the first time ever. Yeah. And somebody had written, I saw about the rise of chess.com, and a lot of this came from like Queen's Gambit, people doing things over pandemic. But, and I reached out and I said, look, you were talking about chess.com, but how about even the next wave from that, which is a 1,500-year-old hobby is now a competitive esport. And so you've gone from this hobby to community to this. And it's basically, I look for things that I can relate to with a reporter and with a journalist, because ultimately our job is to take something cool and bring it to someone who writes about something cool. And we the best way we work with them is to say like, hey, you were writing about this. This might be relevant too. My best journalist relationships are guys that will call me and say, hey, can I pick your brain about this? Can I pick your brain about this? And that's what you want. And that's what I aspire to have. And this, it's funny because you have clients that the worst thing that I think on any sort of client is one that makes you constantly justify what you're doing with comms, because to me, it means that they don't actually get why they're there and why they're doing it. And comms is keeping the balls in the air, keeping the relationships alive, and constantly being on the lookout for how are we valuable to the billions of conversations that are happening at that given moment. How can we make ourselves relevant for what's going on?
Which makes it continuously hard for us to describe what we do to our family members. Like, I you still write for the Globe, right? I'm like, no. Oh, so you're in advertising? Sorta, not really. Oh, so you're a social media manager? I'm like, kinda. Oh, you work in an email? And then, no, like, I just, I help people sell stuff, and I just do it through storytelling. Yeah.
I tell them, I say, I help people tell something that they aren't able to tell in normal people format. Make it more take difficult stories and tell it in layman's terms.
So what's obviously you're I wouldn't say you're day one of your company, but you're still in a sort of infancy stage, but clearly being driving success. What's next for you, the company? Where's your particular space heading? Obviously gaming is not going away. It's clearly millions and millions of dollars being spent there. What are the opportunities for you? What's next for your company?
So for me, a lot of the stuff within the betting space revolves around what happens legislatively, which is only going to grow. The biggest thing in betting right now is how you have legalized sports betting overall, and then you have states that are doing specifically that are doing mobile sports betting, and then after that it's now becoming like market based because everything's around a market. So you've probably seen things like Kalshi and how Robinhood will allow you to bet the prediction market of what's going on. Ultimately, this all means it's just that there's a lot of people in the United States who just wish they were richer. Is basically what you're basically finding. But for me, I gotta first of all formalize my name on this. I've settled on ARO strategies. Okay. So because I don't want to be specific with the sports stuff.
Yep.
But I think it's just for me, it's I'm constantly looking to find other people I can collaborate with. And I just like, and there's like you, and I have like a handful of people that I really like collabing on projects, and I like to think of it as like clients want an Ocean's 11 of people who are going to get it done. They don't really want to hire like a giant agency anymore because it's, I don't agree with much that our government says, but I really do strongly agree with the fact that it is economically better to not have a ton of employees and outsource this to whatever and do things this way. And so I can understand that concept because that's how brands are now functioning.
Yep.
So I'm trying to build more of that type of network, and ultimately like what I do, and I think drives some of this business and helps make me successful. I try to refer and help everybody else. And I truly believe that like what's good for my friends is good for me. And it's not necessarily a quid pro quo thing, but I am good at cleaning up my side of the street. Like I've used that analogy before. Someone told it to me the other day and I loved it, so I'm using it a lot. But I would rather try to help clean up the street for any of my friends who may not necessarily have as big of a broom or maybe aren't as comfortable cleaning in front of everybody, and try to do that. Like not everybody's good at biz dev and not everybody's good at that stuff. And so I just try to refer and help as many people as possible because ultimately I have seen through, 45 years of being on this earth, that when you help everybody else doing stuff, it does eventually come around. You just got to be patient.
Yep.
It does come around.
1,000%. I just talked about this today, that, what people tend to forget about networking, and they think of it as I'm going into a room of 300 people and selling goat farms to sheep herders in Nebraska, right? I go in there with a stack of boomerangs, particularly to say, hey, Adam, Don Martelli, PR Bunker and VP of Integrated Marketing and Alignable. Love to learn more about your business. How can I help? Right? And like, let them do the talking. And to your point, I might not be able to connect you today on X, but eventually if I stay connected, I will be able to help. And I think you're right about that. That boomerang will come back to you. It's going to come back. Hey, look, I'm going to give you some free time to do some mind share. I'm going to connect you with a reporter that I know. Need a plumber. I got a guy. Like, I think
plumbers are hard to find. Good plumbers
very
are
hard
really
to find.
Very hard to
despite YouTube and all the DIY videos, sometimes you need a good plumber. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Well, before we wrap up here, I want to. How can people learn more about you, connect with you? If you got clients out there listening, how can they connect with you?
So I've named my clients. You can find me on LinkedIn. So there are 2 Adam Rosenbergs that work in gaming. The other one. You
successessly cloned yourself. Congratulations.
Yeah, I've successfully cloned myself. That's a great joke. The guy,
Feel free to use it anytime, free of charge.
Oh, it's a good one. The other one is actually an investor in the space, and so we get each other's phone calls and things all the time. There's also a gaming reporter named Adam Rosenberg, but you will find me. My LinkedIn is very much me because I also DJ, so my cover photo is me turning a bunch of knobs.
Got
it. You can find me on the X and Twitter machine. I'm at Hey Rosenberg on everything.
Perfect.
I'm pretty accessible, and I think that's something you're the same way.
Yep.
I think I've tried to make myself as accessible as possible to folks that because again, not everybody's able to be as loud in the room. And you and I, first thing you said to me, you're like, I'm not a guy who pronounces my R's, and I got a voice that carries. And I'm like, I love this. I love Don. So I'm the same way except for the R's part.
Exactly.
So,
it's the odds.
The odds. So I told that, by the way, to my mother-in-law, who's a South Boston person. She loved it. I said, I met this guy a year ago when I met you, and I was like, I met this guy who said he doesn't pronounce his R's, and she's like, oh, that's good. She loved it.
She doesn't either. Right?
Yeah. She totally doesn't. So,
well, hey,
Walsh. So yeah.
Congratulations on the success. Love the niche that you've carved out. We're here because we've boomeranged back and forth and had some conversations through our journeys in the last handful of years. But thank you for joining the PR Bunker podcast. For those of you that are interested in learning more about Adam, absolutely connect with him on LinkedIn. I know firsthand he is a connector and somebody that will help you in mind sharing, understanding what he's doing, or just another comms brain to pick his brain, despite his his fandom for the Eagles, which we'll leave on the side. I did win $1,000 at the Super Bowl, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
I had so hold on, real quick story on that. I had first jersey number of jersey of the first TD score under 15.5, first TD rushing, and it was so I was threading a needle, and I had Hurts TD just for whatever. All 3 of those hit at the same time.
Wow.
It was gorgeous.
Well, you're the guy.
It was great. It was great. You also can contact me for home run props. I'm very good at that.
Look, if you build yourself as the ChatGPT of online gambling and you can be successful at it, then you can get after it. Good stuff. Well, thank you for joining me today. And absolutely, let's continue the conversation, and good luck with everything you got going on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
No problem.